We can go ahead and get started. I'm just going to read out loud the materials for today. So today is Friday. It's our last day of Space Week. What a fun week of space adventures we've had. Materials for Alicia's project today. You'll need a pencil, construction paper, white paper, scissors, glue or tape, markers or colored pencils, paint if you have it, and a glass of water to clean your brush and a brush. Cool. If you have any questions, you're welcome to type them in here to the chat box, and Miss Ayla will keep an eye on those and answer those out loud. And with that, I hand you over.
Yay. Well, good morning, everyone. It's super nice to have you with us on this very, very rainy day. If there's any thunder, it'll be very noisy in the video. Oh, Eddie and Griffin, I'm so sad you won't be doing camp with us after today. But we're super glad to have you here today and to have had you with us this entire time. It's been good hanging out with you every Friday. But speaking of Fridays, today's project. So I know I'm the type of person who really misses someone who I haven't seen in a while. I haven't seen Ayla in person in forever. So what I've thought about doing is sending people cards, actually through the mail, to people who I haven't seen very often. It's just kind of a hi, I miss you. We can't be in person right now, but here's a nice thing, I'm thinking about you. So I thought a really cool thing to do this week would be to combine making cards with our space theme. Kind of a play on the space between us joke. Jokes. So here, if you can see it, I know my camera's a little off today. I have made a space themed card. So I've got my kind of galaxy in the background, some planets, and then on the inside, I addressed this one to my mom. I can write a little letter, and if I wanted to, I could, put it in an envelope and mail it off.
Okay.
But if you don't want to make cards, and that's totally cool, card making is not for everyone. You can also make just little pictures and what's called matting them on construction paper. So it looks super fancy. And I will show you all of these different coloring techniques with marker and with color pencil. And if we have time and if enough people have paint, I will show you how to do a watercolor with marker. So first and foremost, right now, the most important materials that you will need are your white paper and your construction paper and a pencil. So I know in the past couple of weeks, we've talked a lot about putting everything on one page. You have your background, your things that are closer to you in the foreground, and you draw it all on one paper. Because what we're doing today is kind of messy, especially with the markers. If you want to add things like planets or astronauts or fish in space or even yourself in space, I would highly recommend drawing that on a separate piece of paper and then attaching it with glue or with tape. And I'll show you how to do that. But first and foremost, I want to show you the colored pencil method of making a galaxy or space. So I'm going to shift you all so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, now you can see me a little bit better. Okay, so if you plan on making a card, one thing I would highly, highly recommend is planning the space that you want to color first. So you could do that very easily by just drawing whatever shape you want your space scene to be, if you don't want it to be the whole paper. You could very easily, take this whole piece of paper, draw a giant space scene on it. If that's what you want to do, by all means, go for it. Just because I'm planning on making a card similar to this, I want to make a smaller scene that'll fit on a card. So I made a very small-ish rectangle. You can kind of see it here. And this is where I'm going to plan on coloring. So in terms of the color pencils, you can use really whatever color you want to use. So for this particular one, I use lots of purples and greens and pinks. And the important thing with the color pencils is to layer them. So the more colors you have, the more interesting it's going to look. So I think I'm going to this time use a yellow, a purple, a pink. Maybe I'll do blue, green, and then I think I'm also going to use the black. The black one is really important, or even like a darker color or like a brown if you have it, because that'll make sure that you kind of get the spacey, dark, eerie effect that space has. So for the color pencil, I highly recommend, and with markers too, is to start with your lightest color. So that way when you color over it, you're not getting like a bunch of different colors on your light color and making it kind of like dirty and not as fun to use. So because yellow is my lightest color, I'm going to start coloring yellow. Now the cool thing with galaxies is that because not everything is the same color, you can kind of be wild and creative with where you put your color on the page. So I can either do just kind of a blotch of yellow like this, or you can just kind of scribble all over the page with your color. And it's okay if you go over whatever shape you're doing, because you can always make it, cut it to make it bigger or smaller later. But here I made a bunch of yellow squiggles and shapes. And they don't all have to go to the same direction either. It's just to get some color on the page. Now, if you want a cool trick with color pencils, if you have something with a fun textured background, like cardboard, or like if your table is a wooden table and has like wood grain, if you color right on that, you'll get extra texture in your paper, which makes the drawing look even better, I think. But once you've got your first color down, go ahead and start coloring your second one. The fun thing with galaxies, I think, is that you can overlap the colors as much or as little as you want. Right now I'm using my pink marker or pink color pencil, and I've overlapped some of it with the yellow, so we'll eventually start to blend, which I think is super pretty. But if you want some areas of just one color, say like pink, or if you're using a blue or whatever, those spaces that aren't two colors will just be the one, and it'll really pop more. So as you're doing it, you can really think of, do I want this color to be more bold, or do I want to blend it? So here I've got my two kind of scritchy, blendy colors. There was actually a marker when I was a kid called blendy pen that you would take two markers of different inks.
Oh, I remember those.
And then you would have like one marker with like 2 or 3 different colors you can just color on it. My favorite markers as a kid. I always ended up making brown though, so yeah. Live and learn. So I'm picking my third colored pencil. And if you weren't going my speed, especially if you're doing like a bigger piece, like if you're coloring this whole paper, you don't have to go as fast as I do. You're welcome to color or not color as much or as little as what makes you happy. I'm just making this kind of small because I plan on doing other things today, and I want to have time to show you all of those things. So that way, if you're like looking at this again later or have some more inspiration, you can do all sorts of different ways, like galaxy methods. And you've got all of those in your toolbox at your disposal.
You guys can use colored pencils or markers if you don't have paint.
Yes. It is totally okay if you don't have paint and aren't able to use that.
By the computer, which is fair.
And the paint really is just for the stars, but I can definitely show you how to make like paper stars and glue on instead, or you can add stars later. Like, I think you can see it best in this one. The only place I've used paint in this particular one is just to make like dots of white for stars. But if you've got like a white pen, or even if you just leave some space white, there's totally other ways to get stars. So if you can't use paint right now or don't have paint, totally fine. Thank you for that. And if you have any other questions or like, hey, I don't have this thing, feel free to let us know. We've got plenty of alternatives for you. So once I get our galaxy done, I think I might actually add some other bits to this picture and like glue them on so I have some more things, which also helps if you don't have stars. You can add planets. It makes it look more like space if you have more things on your page. So I have gone in. Yes, you're not supposed to chat while painting. Too messy. I agree, it is super messy. So if you can't chat right now, if you're using paint, or if you're using markers and it's just too messy, totally fine. We might have some time at the end. We can just kind of chat and put all of the emojis and have that kind of fun. It's a little too messy right now. But as you can see, I've added in some purple. And I've added just random, like a nice line of purple, just for fun. So I have to ask Ayla, what colors are you using so far?
I can show. I'm using markers, but I'm using these two at the moment. These two blue ones.
Ooh.
Nice pink one, and I'm kind of putting them all, laying them all together.
Cool. Yeah, I've got a couple marker tricks I'll be showing in a minute, or like once I'm done with this, that I find really fun to use. So you get kind of like two galaxy effects. So I've started using my blue colored pencil, and I'm going over it with going over the yellow. So now I'm getting this really cool dark green that I didn't have before, even though I already used green on the page. So this is, as you add more colors, you start to have a bit of a rainbow on the page, and I think that's really fun and like exciting. And if you want to do some overarching shapes, like if you want to put triangles of color or circles of color on here, totally do it. It'll make it look all the more interesting. And you know, space from what we see in pictures is pretty much dark and like black, but when you finally see stars or whatever, like there's so much color in space that it totally makes sense to just have like a rainbow of color. Okay, so at least with my colored pencil, I'm ready to go on to what is like the last step of making the galaxy. And if you're not there yet, that's totally fine. I'm just going kind of fast so I can show you lots of galaxy methods. But once you reach your last color, which for me is black, you're going to want to go over certain areas to highlight some of the color, or to like put some of the colors you've already put down in shadow. And that'll make your drawing look like it's in space. And the same thing goes for markers too, except with markers, it's a little bit more unforgiving because you can't really press lighter with a marker to like take away some of the color. So I recommend if you have like a gray marker and a black marker, put some gray down and then go black like with the markers. So that way Like if you make a mistake, it's a little bit more forgiving. But if you've got a color pencil, you can start off by just kind of coloring lightly and see if you like where the darker color is. So like right now I just colored in this little corner right here with a little bit of the black color pencil. And I think I like that, so I might add in, maybe not the whole thing, but just a darker area of black there. And I'm gonna just make it randomly span across my page in a random shape. Because one thing I've noticed with galaxies, and unfortunately I don't have any pictures for you today, but with like pictures of galaxies, sometimes stars in space look like really, really fluffy clouds, except clouds of light. So if you want to try to simulate a sort of like cloud, fluffy star field, by all means, go for it. So if you are able to chat right now, if you want to share some of the ideas that you have for your galaxy, or that you're thinking about trying, or maybe like something extra you're going to add, like a astronaut or something, you're welcome to put those in the chat. I'd love to hear what you're adding, or like what colors you're using. And if you can't chat at the minute, totally cool. You can just pop that in the chat later if you would like. So here's where I'm at with mine. I'm kind of adding my black in waves so I can highlight little bits of color here and there. And then just doing light bits where, say, I don't really like that yellow because I think it looks kind of gross now. Coloring over it. Add some fun depth. If you have any white spaces left, it's also a good place to add in some of your darkest color. Because then it looks like it was intentional. Maybe it was intentional. I know for me, I accidentally forgot a couple places to color, so no, it's all colored. So I think for my colored pencil galaxy, this is where I'm going to stop for now, so I can show you the next one. But I will say, if you are using a smaller area like this for to make a card, that would be a great time to cut it out. Or like once you're done coloring, cut it out before you add anything else. So that way you know the area you have to either add stars or any other shapes that you're going to add. So here is my small cutout galaxy piece, but I think it's missing something. Like I really think it's missing a planet. So I'm going to sketch a circle shape with my pencil and color that in so I can have a planet. The cool thing with planets is that, you know, they all have different kind of color schemes and they're all over the place. Like if you look at a picture from Earth, from space, we see lots of like blues and greens and browns. But other planets like Jupiter are like orange and yellow. They're blue planets. They're planets with cool designs and stripes and rings. So you can get creative, or as creative with planets and planet design as you would like.
There are planets that are giant balls of ice, all kinds of stuff.
You roboted out there for a second, Anna. What did you say?
I said there are planets that are just like giant masses of ice.
Yes, there are.
Too.
And there are planets that like have a lot of ice that maybe once had life. We don't know, kind of like Mars. Maybe one day we'll find out. We'll ask the scientists.
Mm-hmm.
So with my extra scrap paper, I made a sort of like a reddish planet with stripes.
Ooh.
I might add some yellow just to lighten it up a little. Get some orange going. It's, you know, colored pencils blend really well, so you don't have to worry about them bleeding. But you can add orange really easily. So here is my planet that I'm going to add. But I have to cut it out first. And if you're adding stars, but say you don't have paint or you can't use paint right now, that would also be a really great time to draw some stars and kind of cut them out. So you can either cut little circles of paper for stars, or if you actually want to draw a star, like this, and then cut it out, that's another great way to add some stars. I think I'm going to cut out this star. I just have a really, really big star on my page. And if you draw a star and it looks kind of wonky, like one point's too big or whatever, it's totally cool if you cut off the lines, or if you decide, you know, I'm going to flip this star over so you don't see the lines. Total creative freedom is yours. Like right now, I don't feel like erasing or coloring in this particular star. So I'm just gonna leave it like this and attach it.
And you can also sort of leave little white spaces. So like I got some stars like that.
Yes, that's also a good strategy, is to just like intentionally leave white space. Thank you for that, Ava. So if you have any things to glue down, like I do, I want to glue my planet and my big star to my little galaxy piece here. Oh, yes. Here is my planet. Emily asked to see the planet I made. The planet. I just drew a circle, colored some red, added a little bit of yellow. It looks more like an oval, but it's shape enough. It's a planet shape enough for me. When you go to glue, I would definitely recommend to put the glue on the white part of the littler piece, so that way you use less glue, but you also have some better control as to where you stick your tiny piece, because then if it falls, it doesn't just stay where it fell. And I think I'm gonna put my planet like up here somewhere at the top. So now I've got my planet attached to my little galaxy scene. And I'm gonna do the same thing with my star. The only problem with glue, and I love like being creative, but then your hands get all sticky because the glue is super, super sticky, and it's like one of the feelings that I dislike the most is glue on the hands. But here is, so far, my galaxy scene with my one star. Now, let's say you're at a point, or like later on, you get to a point that you're pretty much done. You're like, okay, this is good. I'm happy with this. and you want to either make your card or mat it. Well, for this particular example, I'm going to make a card, and I'll show you how to mat the other ones, which is honestly a little bit easier. But let's say you're ready for the card point. Just grab whatever construction paper you're using, or like other color paper you're using, or even just other white paper. Like this would look really cool as a card on white paper too if you don't have construction paper. But regardless, take whatever piece of paper you have and hold your galaxy up to it if it's smaller. And this might give you an idea as to how you want to fold your card. So say you only want you want a big card, so you can like fold your paper hamburger style in half. You'll have a half card, which you can then decorate after the fact or whatever. And maybe you can center your galaxy right in the middle or over here, and you can have some words here. Me personally, I'm really feeling a smaller card with this one. So what I might do is take my half card and fold it in half. So technically I've folded my paper into fourths if we're using fractions. And you can go ahead and glue that on the front here. And then the benefits of doing this, you've got a slightly stronger paper because you've got like 2 layers. But if you need to conserve construction paper, or if you're running short or whatever, you can always cut along one of your sides. I'm cutting along my hamburger side right now. You have enough paper then to make 2 cards, which works really great if you're sending cards or whatever to multiple people. Like I could send one to Ayla, and then I could send one to Natalie, and then if I still had extra paper, I could make other small cards to send to friends.
I think I'm gonna make mine like a postcard.
Ooh,
I think that would be fun.
good postcard size. Once you have your card, if you're doing this, if we have some time, I can show you some cool pop-out methods for cards. Otherwise, we can do that another day. You then get to decide how you want your galaxy on the paper. So your card, even though I colored it this way, maybe your galaxy, when you send it, maybe you want it to look like this so the star's on the top, or look like this so the planet is on a corner, or any really form you want. Totally up to you. I'm feeling my very big red planet in the corner. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue. So I can stick it to my card. And now I've got my card here. And from here you can, cut some shapes around the edges or decorate it however you want.
Yeah, a border, all kinds of stuff.
I will say though, if you are painting or using like a gel pen or whatever to add like white stars or like whatever color stars you maybe want to add, I would do that once your smaller galaxy paper is on whatever card or mat you're making. So that way, if you go to move it or change it later, if you've got a wet material, it won't start falling all over the paper. You look at this one, I accidentally put the paint on first in this one, and now I've got a cool blob. It looks like a shooting star, but wasn't what I intended. So learn from my mistakes. Unless you want to do that, unless you want a cool shooting star. But regardless, if you have paint, and if you've got a paintbrush, you can very easily do this by dipping your paint in whatever color star you want, and then just doing dots is the easiest method. But you can also, if you've got a big enough paintbrush and a lot of room to like be messy, my next step is a very, very messy tip. And only recommend if your parent or guardian, whoever's with you, is okay with making a bit of a mess. Where you take your paint, you dip your brush in it, and then you flick the tip of the paintbrush to make stars. It'll make a cool star effect. It'll be all random and like tiny, there'll be big ones. The only problem is that the paint gets everywhere, including on your finger, which I'm not doing because I've got my computer here today and I don't want paint all over my computer. But flicking your paintbrush onto your paper will also make some cool stars. But I'm going to be using a paint marker. Because I'm using a paint marker, I can just take my marker or whatever other material you're using and just add some dots all over the place. If you put more paint in an area, it's going to look like a bigger star. I'll show you my bigger star in a minute. And you can really add as many or as little painted stars as you want. I'll show you this. Like for example, I made a bigger star here, but you've got to be very, very careful with it, with wet paint, because it will start to dribble all over. Here I've got a tiny little galaxy card with colored pencil. My next one that I'm gonna do, however, is gonna be with marker. So I'm gonna take my same paper, because I've still got tons of paper I can use on this, and find me some markers. Now there are tons of different ways you can do galaxies with marker. For this particular one, I did the exact same thing with the colored pencil, where I made like random lines all over the place in random shapes and kept adding color over color over color to kind of make this sort of stringy, fluffy, kind of flowy galaxy. So this would be what it would look like if you use the same kind of method as I did for the colored pencil, but with marker. The second method I'm going to show you looks kind of similar in the end, but relies more on adding in blocks of color. So for that, I'm going to grab some markers. And again, I'm going to start with my lightest color. In this case is a really light pink. And just add a block of color onto the paper, or like whatever area you're planning on coloring. So you can either like make a triangle of color or like a circle of color. I just kind of added, it's really hard to see in this lighting, a really light pink, like a weird trapezoid of light pink. And similar to the other method I showed you, you're going to just add more of these blocks of color, overlapping each other, not overlapping each other. If you're using markers, now is a great time to like add more and more colors. So I added a darker pink here, but say I want to make it even darker, you can go over it again to get a more like dark, solid block of color. And I will say, if colors like pink or blue or whatever aren't your style, you are not by any means required to just use the same colors as I. If you want an orange galaxy, live your orange galaxy dreams, is what I will say. Now I forgot I had some orange, so I'm gonna add some some yellow into my galaxy with a yellow marker. Here I'm just, instead of doing blocks of color, I am just doing some lines. Now I've got a lighter blue marker, so I'm going to add in some blue. some blocks of blue into mine. Kind of all over. And the more you overlap your markers, the more of a blend you're gonna get. I'll show you in a minute, but I've got some green and purple spots starting where I've laid some darker color. And then I kind of blend it in together. So here I've got some kind of green spaces where the yellow and the blue have mixed, some purpley spaces where the pink and the blue have mixed. And then of course you can always add in like darker blues or even a purple. So you've got different hues and tones of marker. So hues and tones are just like how white or how black seeming the color is, like how much like light color, how much dark color is in the color itself. So right now I'm adding in a kind of really dark blue actually, which would be like a tone of blue because it's got a lot of like dark blue and gray black in it. And in some areas I'm going to make it a little darker. Here's my favorite thing with galaxies is that you can make a lot of really pretty things by just kind of using a scribble method. And I think we need more opportunities just to be able to scribble in life and just take a marker, go at it. I think we need more of those opportunities because then we can make it into something beautiful. There's also a really good way of like if you've got some scrap paper or like a paper you just kind of colored on years ago that's kind of scribbly, you can reuse those papers to make galaxy type art and turn something that maybe you didn't really like in the past into something you really like now. It's a cool way of reusing your old artwork. So I've added some purple to the sky.
Ooh, nice.
And I just keep adding darker and darker colors. And the more darker colors you add, the more the galaxy is going to kind of come to life. I think that's the darkest color I have in the purple. So now I'm going to add in some of my gray and black. So here I've got a gray marker. It looks almost black on the camera, but it's really just a gray marker. And then I've got a black marker. And you can just add in, like with the color pencil, your darkest colors wherever you want to make the effect that you desire. I'm going to be using the gray first. That way if I don't like it, I don't have to like be like, oh, I just completely colored over an area. Helps save your drawing a little bit that way. So I'm just drawing with my gray some lines and some blocks of color. Like I didn't really like where I put this blue, so I just colored over it in the gray. Looks like we're starting to get a little bit of sunshine out there. I'm very excited for that. Though I do like a good summer rainstorm. How do you guys feel about rainstorms? Do you like them? Do your dogs hate them? Let's discuss.
I like a good rainstorm, unless I'm trying to sleep. Then it's not very nice.
Oh, good point. I like rainstorms up until when it's raining. Arden really likes rain. I've got a friend where rain is her favorite type of weather because she likes to go out and walk in it. Like that is her favorite thing to do.
I like a nice gentle rain. I agree, that's nice. Not like when it's bucketing down though, and then
Like the other day, it was super rainy.
Arden likes rain. Well, Arden, that makes sense, I think, since you are part duck.
Yes.
As we all.
I can see ducks liking rain. I mean, they do. So here's my picture after I've added some gray.
Oh.
I've got darker colors, but I've also got the lighter colors showing. I'm finally going to take my black and go over some of my gray parts. When you layer like darker colors over lighter colors, it adds some depth into the picture. So it looks like there's more going on.
Also with markers, something I did by accident, but that turned out kind of cool, was that I don't know if I can show it very well. If you can see at the bottom here, I was using my marker like sideways,
Ooh.
like this, and I got these kind of cool, like different thickness of lines at the bottom. So that could also be just, you know, trying different things with your pencils to get different textures.
I agree. Rotating your marker or like trying it in different ways, like maybe gently up and down or sideways, are all really good ways to like use your marker to get different textures and thicknesses. Like with most art supplies, markers, you just really have to experiment to find a way to use them that you are really into. For sake of time, this is where I'm going to leave off with this galaxy. I'm going to cut it out really quickly so I can show you what matting is, or how to mat your own artwork. And I'll show you the finished piece in a second. And then we'll get on to like some of my favorite ways to do galaxies. So here is my marker galaxy. It might look different than yours. It's totally cool. This one just matches the color pencil, kind of, but also is kind of fluffy. Now, in terms of matting, let's see, can I use this piece? No, it's a little bit too small. If you're going to mat something, what that basically means is you're adding a kind of plain, or sometimes not plain, piece of paper or cardstock behind your artwork. And doing that lets you kind of bring focus to your artwork. It highlights it. It makes it look really, really professional. So like if you've ever been to the Yay Festival in Evanston, sometimes what art teachers will do is take whatever drawing or painting or whatever and mat it on a piece of paper. So that way your artwork, when it's hung up, looks so much more professional. And when I display art, like in my room or like in my house, I really like to mat it because it makes it look cooler, and also depending on where it's at, it helps the artwork last a little bit longer. Because sometimes when you have like tape or like whatever on directly on your piece, if you need to move it, you might accidentally rip the piece. So matting it also helps preserve it so you can move it wherever you want. So to mat, I put some glue on the back of my little galaxy piece, and I'm putting it directly on my paper. And you want to leave some of the background paper on top and to the side, because that will be your border. And if you're using a bigger piece of paper, when you cut it out, you want to leave a little bit on the top and side as well. And how much you do that, like how much you leave, is entirely up to you. I think mine is about 1 centimeter, but I just like really smaller mats myself. So if I wanted later, now that this is all nice and matted, I could add stars or planets or a spaceman if I wanted. But now I'm going to get to two of my favorite ways of doing galaxies. The first one is really, really quick, and it involves doing a gradient with your markers. Now, I really love galaxies, but what I love more than galaxies are sunsets. So here's my little small example. I made like a little farm scene with like a house and like a silo, and made what started as a sunset and moves into a galaxy as it goes further up into space. And you can do that super easily by taking whatever colors you want in your galaxy. So I'm gonna do like yellow, this pink, this kind of orange color, and say these two markers. And just do kind of rectangles of color. Or just like stripes across the paper of color, kind of like how Ayla did part of her galaxy drawing. You're just gonna start with your lightest color on the bottom or wherever you want to start it. Yeah, exactly. And start blending those colors upward. The key to a good galaxy though, is when you start a new color, color over the last color you did a little bit so that it blends. So here I have my yellow and my kind of orangey color, but where they overlap is like a deeper orange, which really leads into a nice gradient. And the cool thing about this method is that if you don't want to do a galaxy, this is a really good way of also doing a sunset. So you're like, do 2 in 1 or just do 1. And really the only difference is how high up your sunset colors go. So like right now it looks like my example is going to be more of a sunset at the minute. Get lots of color on the paper. And lots of like sunset warm colors on the paper.
And you can also get different shades of color with a marker the more you go over it. So like for this pink, this is the same marker, but on the bottom I went over it a bunch of times, and so it's much darker than it is up here.
Great point.
Different
Layering your markers is a great way to get darker color, or also blending.
Mm-hmm.
So like here I used the blue, and when I did the purple, I went over it once and then I went over it again a little bit lower to blend it in a bit better. Hard to tell in the camera, but it works. Artist secrets. And on the top, I'm going to use the black. Okay. And if you go back, you're like, I don't really think this is like gradient enough for me yet. You can go through and add, if you remember what color you used where, you can bring that darker color down with just some little squiggle lines.
Hi, Addie Griffin.
To make it look like it's squiggly. The ducks have appeared. I love it. Hello, ducks. Here, I've got some squiggles. Oh, and the fish. The fish are here too. I'm glad they made an appearance. I have missed them. Once you've got your gradient satisfied, happy to where you like it, you can go through, add stars, galaxies, or planets, wherever you would want, and you'll have a cool sunset galaxy picture. The last method, which again is pretty messy, and I only recommend if you were like, if your family member is okay, or whoever's at home with you making a bit of a mess, is to take normal like washable markers and take them to a thicker piece of paper. So I don't think we'll have a lot of time to show that today in its entirety, but basically what you do, you take a thicker piece of paper or like multiple layers of like white paper, and you color, what am I scratching the paper from? Here it is. You color whatever color you want in an area, So say I want like a maroon color in an area right here. If you take your paintbrush with a little bit of water, doesn't need to be a lot by any means. If you take just a little bit of water, and it's kind of finicky on printer paper, it doesn't like to work as well, but you can kind of get it to work if you play with it a bit. You take the water, put it on the marker that you'd put. It'll start to blend and bleed out, and that will lead to a cool watercolor effect, which means that even if you don't have watercolor paints, as long as you have markers and a little bit of a thicker paper, you can kind of do your own watercolor painting. I will say though, it is a very, very slow process, which is why we're not doing it on camera as much today. You have to let every color dry, otherwise they mix and bleed and you end up with mud. But even on thin paper, I just added some water over it to make the markers seem less intense. So once this dries, I can add another color over it. And where I have my brush strokes, or like where water has pooled, we'll leave a cool like cloud-like shape, and will look very much like a galaxy. And that is the shape there for that. And because this is really wet, I can't show you the next color quite yet. But I will say that those are all the strategies I have for my galaxy today. And while we've got a couple minutes, maybe like, we'll get like 3 minutes left. Is anyone interested in like a quick game of maybe like guess the planet or guess the animal? Or do we just want to like chat in the chat a little bit and add some more apples? And is that a, oh, is that actually a duck? There's a duck emoji, like an actual one?
Yeah, there is. Did you not know that?
I didn't know that. I think the emojis I use the most are flowers.
There are emojis for everything.
I know the flower emojis and like all of the fun like country flag emojis, but I've never actually seen the duck emoji.
Oh, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I get it.
An apple a day. Is that one of those like, there's a game where you put something on your, like, usually your phone, like on your forehead, and like it says something, you've got to guess what it is, like what the.
Oh, like the headbands game?
Yeah.
Do like Post-it note.
I've seen some of my friends playing that recently. I like that. So any questions while we still have some time left, either about Space Week or what next week is going to look like in terms of activity? So we got a couple minutes. I can tell you about that. See lots of apples and a question mark. If you're asking me my favorite type of apple, I would have to say Fuji. Fuji is my favorite type of apple. How about you, Ayla?
I like Fuji. I like a Macintosh.
Ooh.
Tasty. Not the computer, the Apple.
Those are delicious.
And I like Granny. I know some people don't like Granny Smith because they think it's a little too like sour, bitter tasting, but I really like Granny Smith.
Oh, wait, looks like I have 1 minute. And this lovely little pink area I colored dried. So I added, just to go back to the watercolor thing really quick, added some purple. I'll add some water over it, and it'll make a cool watercolor effect. Addie and Griffin say they like bananas. I also really like bananas, but the one thing I like more than bananas is banana bread.
Ooh. Made some banana muffins recently. Very good.
Very fun. So I've added some water. I've got some mixed in blue going on now too. And this, like I said, works better with a little bit of a thicker paper, but I've got some scrap white paper, so that's what we used. But it can be very messy.
And
That's all I have. Natalie, take it away.
I just came back to see how everybody's doing, and How was your craft experience today?
Good. We made tons of different galaxy, like matted pictures and cards. And thank you for all of the flowers in the chat. I appreciate them.
Ooh, Ayla, nice.
Mine's not quite complete, but I made a little postcard from space.
That's pretty cool though. All right, I'm gonna put my email address here in the chat. If anybody wants to send me pictures of what you made today, I would love to see it. And I know these folks would love to see it too.
Absolutely.
Let's see. There we go. All right. Thank you, everybody. We had a great week of space adventures, and next week we move on to nature.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Enjoy your rainy Friday.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Bye. See you next week.